Afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is the GT World Challenge Esports Asia Sprint Series, round 2 from the beautiful Zandvoort Grand Prix circuit. My name is Paul Jeffrey, and alongside me we have got Andy McEwen as we talk you through all the action from today's racing. And Andy, good afternoon to you, sir. How are you doing?
Very well, Paul. Thank you for having me. Really looking forward to this. My first taste, actually, of the GT World Challenge Esports Asia series and the Sprint series. I'm sure following this sort of traditional 60-minute sprint race format is going to be an absolute blast. We've got one of the true classic circuits playing host to this race, a really big grid of drivers, and of course the vast majority of them having to re-qualify in for tonight as well means that we will guarantee ourselves a high quality entry. And of course it's only a 5-round championship, Paul, so we're moving into that mid part of the season now. So drivers that have aspirations of fighting for the championship will need another good result here today.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Last time out at Brands Hatch, all the way back on the 20th of May, we had a great race at the top of the field and throughout the grid. As you rightly say, the level of driving quality here in the Asia Series has been exceptional this season and last season for our debut year as well. I'm expecting very much more of the same here from Zandvoort. Zandvoort is a difficult circuit. It's an historic and iconic track, as you rightly say. This is the 2019 layout that we'll be using for the race today, 4.307 kilometres, 15 corners, and Andy, we've seen the quality and the speed of the field, but qualification is going to be so critical today, isn't it? Because there are precious few overtaking opportunities here.
Yeah, I mean, it can be done, but it's often a bit of a risky move on the brakes, or you have to try and force a mistake out of the driver in front of you. So yeah, track position will be at a premium, but of course, just getting a good lap in qualifying isn't all that easy to do. There's a lot of traffic out there. It's a narrow circuit. You can be on a really hot lap, and if you catch a backmarker going down into the turn 12 and 13 chicane, for example, that can ruin your lap completely, and you don't have a huge amount of time to get those lap times in.
Exactly, a 15-minute qualification session is very much a case of get out there, burn the fuel off, try and set a banker lap and build your speed up as you go. And we've seen it already that strategy plays a great part of these races in the SRO Esports Championship of events, where we have a mandatory pit stop window. It's 10 minutes. The drivers have to come down pit road. They have to add at least 1 litre of fuel. They don't have to change tyres if they don't want to, but some may elect to do so despite the time penalty that will accrue. But here, Andy, I think some of the strategy is going to be very important. But before we get into that one, let's have a quick look at who is taking part in the race today. As Andy mentioned at the top of the broadcast, the top 5 drivers in the point standings qualify automatically, and everybody else has to go through a hot lap qualification process. And you can see many returning names. Sergei Mironenko for the laundry house operation driving the Honda NSX GT3 Evo will be somebody to keep an eye out for over the course of today, as will Luis Moreno for Legion of Racers in the Lexus RCF GT3, another driver that we've seen plenty of in this championship and will be looking to make amends for a difficult time last time out at Brands Hatch. We've got Nigel Chua in the Lifestyle Motorsport Mercedes once again taking part, Thanel Appelin in the Vatinam Motorsport McLaren 720S GT3, again looking for a big score after a difficult time at Brands Hatch, and our championship leader Dayne Warren in the massive VRS Coanda Simsport entry, once again taking part in the Bentley Continental GT3. Another Laundry House driver, bit curious here, Laundry House running multiple marks under their iconic colour scheme for Terry Rayton in the Mercedes AMG. We've got another Kelvin Chen for Full Pace Racing Team in the Porsche, another driver that we'll keep our eye out for, 8th in the championship standings, and we'll be looking for a strong result. And Dika Rama Mulana, the reigning champion in the number 889 Legion of Racers Ferrari 488 GT3 Evo, is bound to be towards the top of the race results. And Mia Rose, one of our lady racers for Jean Alesi Esports Academy, will be representing Honda in the NSX GT3. Yatlam Law for the BMW M6 entry, Andrew Lawrenson in another one of those laundry house machines as well. So once again, a great list. And Andy, fortunately for the drivers, quite a few returning names as we look down the top 10 of the championship standings.
Dayne Warren, then winner last time at Brands Hatch, is your championship leader in the Bentley, and I've just had a peek at the practice times. The drivers have been out practicing for the last little while here at Zandvoort, and Dayne was at the top of those times as well, so he's continuing to run strongly, even though the Bentley has been handed 40 kilos of success ballast for this race. But this has always been a good circuit for the Bentleys, hasn't it? So Dayne Warren looking to extend that margin here with Andika Ramamalana second in the Ferrari, and another Bentley up there in the top three with Fadli Rachmat as well. So all very early days, of course, but as I said, it's only a 5-round series. So a bad result here for any of those top runners in the points could, even at this relatively early stage, put them out of contention.
Yeah, absolutely. And with the top 5 drivers per race allowing access into the next event automatically, you do a hot lap qualification process. You have a bad hot lap time, doesn't work in your favour, and you can't put the practice in of some of your rivals, and suddenly, even being a championship contender, you could find yourself missing out on a spot on the grid for the next race at Mazzano, for example, on the 22nd of July. So it's critical to score, and to score big, both for the size, the length of the championship, and also to make sure you're even participating in the next race, which is a very, very fierce, shall we say, structure to this championship, isn't it?
It's unforgiving, isn't it? But that's I kind of like that, really, because it puts the drivers on a little bit of a precipice, doesn't it? And they've got to be on their A game at every one of these rounds. It's a short championship, first and foremost, so as I said, you need to be consistently scoring in every round, because if you do have one bad race, you don't have a lot of time to bounce back from it. As you said, it then has this snowball effect of potentially keeping you off the grid next time, although the real quick drivers would always like to think they could qualify their way back in. But yeah, anything that puts a bit more pressure on the drivers, I am all for, because drivers, when they're under pressure, the ones that are still performing at their very best, they are the real superstars, and it's exciting to watch.
Yeah, it is indeed. And just to remind everybody at home as well, that as championship victory or high placing is obviously good for prestige, but there's also prize money and trophies on offer to our drivers. The top 3 drivers will get dedicated trophies and prize money, and then the prize money itself, with a minimum guarantee of €2,500, will be divided between the top 5 drivers in the final standing. So 40% for P1, 30 for P2, 15 for P3, and so on and so on. So as well as a great shop window for many of these esporters to put their name out on the world stage and potentially pick up paid contracts with big name esport racing teams, there's also a financial incentive to do well. And we all know, don't we, Andy, when a bit of money's on the line, it all becomes a little bit more serious and it all becomes a little bit more pressured, doesn't it?
It really does, but as I've discovered, as I've made my voyage into sim racing over the last 18 months or so, whether there's money on the line or not, sim racers take this extremely seriously, especially with the real boom in recognition for sim racing recently, and SRO, one of the big motorsport organisers globally these days, getting so deeply involved in esports over the last few months in particular. It just adds an extra bit of credibility to all of this, and it means the drivers are all the more likely to want to get involved in high-end competitions as this one, and ultimately do well in them. You could tell the drivers there's £5 on the line if they win the race, and they will still want to win, because they've still put money into this to get themselves, get all of the kit they need. Sim racing still requires a little bit of a budget to support you. They put a lot of time into perfecting their craft and getting better at all of this. Competing in the races takes a bit of time out of their day as well. So yeah, naturally they want to do well. And then, like you say, you dangle that carrot in front of them. There's a bit of money. There's the chance of getting recognised by some of the real world teams. And yeah, they're going to be all the more determined to try and make the most of this opportunity.
They are indeed. Racing drivers are racing drivers, no matter what the discipline, no matter whether it's real or the virtual worlds. And I believe now we're about to look at the qualification times for these drivers ahead of the second round of the GT World Challenge Asia Esports Sprint Series here at Zandvoort. Remember, the top 5 will carry success ballast, so some of these drivers will be carrying a little bit more weight than they're used to in the car that they found last time out at Brands Hatch. And at Zandvoort, of course, many uphill, downdale sections of circuit. Carrying weight will be a very big penalty indeed for the drivers, as Dayne Warren, our championship leader, takes pole position ahead of female racer Philippa Bakida. Tanku Long in third place for the Ferrari alongside Kelvin Chen in the Porsche 911. Rachmat lines up in fifth position for the Bentley Continental with Thanalapanen in P6. In seventh position is Wong in the McLaren 720S GT3 with Aslan in P8, Pratima in P9, and the first of the Laundry House drivers, Andrew Lawrenson, there in the number 91 Porsche in the iconic Formula 1-esque colour scheme. Huang lines up in 11th place, just outside the top 10, ahead of championship reigning champion Andika Ramanalana. Kelvin Yim in 13th place, Chua in P14th, Lu in 15th position for the Lexus RCF GT3. Terry Rayton in another Laundry House car is P16. Luis Moreno, difficult qualifying, down in 17th position in the number 21. King Long Lee in the Mercedes AMG 18th. 19th is our second female racer, 909. Mia Rose there in the Honda NXS. Ryan Duong in 20th position on the grid. And then we go further down now. 21st is Sudaka ahead of Yang in 22nd for the Bentley Continental, number 12 on your screen at this moment in time. Yat Lam Lo is in 23rd place. Again, a driver we've seen plenty of this season. Zhong Yui in the Porsche 911, number 5 is 24th on the grid. Bahar 25th ahead of Lai in 26th. We've got Andre Abazeki in 27th place for the number 33 Lamborghini on the screen at this moment in time. Woods having a very disappointing time of it, down in 28th place ahead of Clapano, and Quatobe in 30th for the number 75 Honda NSX. Audi not looking particularly fast here today, with Fai Cheng in 31st position ahead of Isaac Norman. Disappointed 32nd on the grid. Lots of work to do come the green flag. Pachianda in 33rd ahead of the number 27 of Yin Ho in the Aston Martin V8 Vantage. Osaka 35th. Mironenko mired all the way down in 36th position in the number 7 Honda NSX ahead of Ming Wong and Yanzi in the 67 Aston Martin on your screen at this moment in time. We've then got Korean 39, Sang Chen Ho in 40th place in the number 10 Aston Martin, and Rajanka, Banerjee, Chotima and Wang round out our 44 car grid. Let's say that again, Andy. 44 GT3 cars at Zandvoort for a 1 hour race. Doesn't take a lot to expect this is going to be quite spectacular.
I just don't think we've got enough cars, Paul. I just don't think that grid is big enough. We need several more, I think, for this to be a true spectacle. No, I mean, that it looks great, doesn't it? And this is something I've always said about Assetto Corsa Competizione as well. I could be fooled into thinking that I'm looking at the real Zandvoort here and a real grid of GT3 cars ready to go racing for 60 minutes. The level of authenticity in this sim is honestly second to none, and that is all going to help us get immersed into what takes place over the next 60 minutes or so. The green flag lap is about to get underway. Before it does though, Paul, a couple of drivers that I noticed there as you were running down the grid that will be probably a little bit disappointed with how their qualifying has gone, and it's actually two of the drivers that were automatically qualified into this race by virtue of finishing in the top 5 last time. You've got the second placed driver in the championship, Andika Ramanalana, only 12th on the grid, and actually sharing that 6th row with Quisheng Huang, in the other Ferrari. So those two Ferraris do seem to be struggling. There is Milano, and you can see the orange and black Ferrari just ahead. They are 2nd and 5th, respectively, in the championship, those two. And yet, we have a Ferrari on the second row of the grid. So is that perhaps just the result of a slightly disappointing qualifying session for those two in particular? Or is it an indication that the Ferrari, with its 30 kilos of success ballast, is going to struggle? And then actually, Tanki Long, who stuck a Ferrari on the second row, just did an exceptional job in that qualifying session.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Andy. I think a case of, we've said it already, 15 minutes in quali is not a long time, but also these Ferraris are carrying the additional weight. A driver like Milano, we know he's got quality, we know he knows how to race, how to set lap times, how to fight his way through the field and win championships. So you can only suggest that the car is just not quite on the money here at Zandvoort, and that's going to make a fascinating subplot, I think, to this story, because Dayne Warren is showing such incredible turns of speed in the VRS Coanda Bentley Continental on the screen at the moment. It's going to be a very, very big ask for Milano to get himself back into contention with these drivers at the front of the field.
Yes, because you can't just expect people like Dayne Warren to make a mistake. You know, he stuck it on pole position, so that immediately, in theory anyway, takes him out of the chance of, a first corner collision or something like that. And if he settles into his rhythm, it looks as though he's got the pace here, doesn't it, to make a bit of a break at the front, or at least stay towards the sharp end of the field. He was on pole position by less than a tenth of a second, of course, so making a big break is not going to be easy to do. But yeah, those two Ferraris are a little bit behind the 8 ball now, aren't they, right from the get-go? And as we've said, not going to be easy to pass here. You can overtake into Tarzan. The first corner is a good chance to do so. Turn 10 as well, the right-hander that sort of hooks back in on itself around the back of the track. And if you're really feeling brave, this is a place where you can make a bold move up the inside as well into the turn 12 and 13 chicane. But they are all risky moves to make. So to score big points in this race, those two drivers that we've just mentioned, the two Ferraris on the 6th row, will have to take some risks.
They will indeed, and the saving grace for a lot of the field here today is, don't forget, the Bentley Continental is carrying maximum success wet ballast into this race. Although it doesn't appear to be affecting one lap pace, that will have an effect over the course of a stint. This is a 60-minute race. We don't need to change tyres at all, so that will affect the VRS Coanda car of Dayne Warren, currently on pole position as we're rounding now the final corner, 2x2 formation, as 44 GT3 cars get ready to hit the loud pedal when the green flag waves. The GT World Challenge Asia Esports Sprint Series Round 2 will be go for 60 minutes at Zandvoort. Dayne Warren on pole position is the first away from the line. Philippa Bakida in the number 326 McLaren on the outside, coming down into Tarzan. A little bit of rubbing between the two cars. Bakida out wide now. That opens the door for Q Long to find a way past as well. Bakida on the outside line. Dayne Warren sharing paint with the Ferrari at the front of the field. Warren trying desperately to convert pole position into a lap 1 lead. Out on the grass now, keeps the car under control into the left-hander as the inside line. Bakida keeping a watching brief in third place, goes sideways. Bakida into the barriers. Warren just about gets away with that one. Q Long in second position now. Drama, Andy, in the first few corners. Philippa Bakida facing the barriers. What a shame.
Oh, you've got to feel sorry for Philippa there, haven't you? She really, really wanted to get into that lead and felt that maybe the opening half lap was going to be the best chance to do so, but it's all gone horribly, horribly wrong. The McLaren in the barriers, in fact, there was another McLaren in the barriers through that first sector, which I think was Van Lappinen, wasn't it, in the 28, because he's dropped down the order slightly to 13th, having started 6th, so not a good start from the McLarens, only one of them now inside the top 10, that being the number 69 car of Pak Ho Wong there, you can see in third position. But for the race leader, Dayne Warren, he fended off that early challenge, and now the job is simple. Try to break away. He may have only been half a second quicker than Philippa in qualifying, but he was 4 tenths quicker than anybody else in qualifying. So now that Philippa's gone, that is good news for the race leader.
It is indeed Nigel Chewer that we're looking at now. Drama at the back of the shot. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 cars off into the barriers. So the accordion effect of everybody close together in the opening corners has led to a little bit of drama further down the running order. Nigel Chewer was sharing paint with the cars around him as well in the number 25 Mercedes. We're looking further up now. Rama Milano, reigning champion, currently second in the standings in the Ferrari, the Motul sponsored Ferrari for the Legion of Racers, the number 889, 9th position. That's 3 places gained off at the start, thanks in part to the drama further up the field. But Andika Rama Milano immediately starting to do exactly what he needs to do. Stay out of trouble, pick your way through the drama, let the car settle in, find your natural rhythm, your natural pace, and then push forward, try and close the gap to that all important top 5 position further up. And Rama Milano, with the drama that we've seen, Andy, at the front and the rear of the field, will be mightily relieved at this stage that everything's pointing in the right direction.
Yeah, and he looks quick at the moment. He's passed Huang, remember, who he started one place behind on the grid, and has already started to latch onto the back of Pratama's Audi just ahead. That's for 8th position, so the Ferrari may not have had brilliant qualifying pace, but it looks strong here in the early part of the race. He's carrying good mid-corner speed there through the left-hander at turn 11. But where do you make the overtake? Because now things are starting to settle down. Everyone's fairly equally spaced out. It's going to be tricky to find a way past that similar mid-engined Audi just ahead. All of these cars are going to make their lap time in similar places. The difference being, though, that the Audi has 20 kilos less success ballast in it than the Ferrari does, and that's going to tell here as they accelerate out of the final corner and head uphill. It's quite a steep uphill drag there, actually, out of the last corner and across the start-finish line.
And we're looking at Ratchmat now in 3rd position. He was 4th last time we saw him, so he's found a way past Wong and the McLaren. Ratchmat makes contact. Wong and Ratchmat make contact. Great save by Fadil Ratchmat in the Bentley Continental GT3. The Tarzan hairpin just about keeps the car pointed in the right direction. That loses him a position to the fellow Bentley driver ahead, but Ratchmat almost in danger in the 2nd and 3rd laps of this race. So up start of 5th, up to 4th, up to 3rd, back down to 4th again. Been a busy few corners so far for Fadil Ratchmat in the JMX Phantom Bentley Continental number 62, currently 4th on the track.
But we do still have a Bentley 3rd, don't we? Because that really benefited Nakib Aslan in the Axel Sports Bentley. He in the white car look is disappearing up the road now, so read that situation really well, picked the right space on the track to sit in and managed to get past the pair of them. So 2 Bentleys inside the top 3, in fact 3 of them in the top 4. Bentley seems to be the car to have here at the moment, doesn't it? It's 1.6 second advantage at the moment for Dayne Warren over Tanky Long in 2nd in the Ferrari, and then a similar gap back to Aslan 3rd, and then the battle for 4th. We've got Bentley, McLaren, and then the pair of Porsches closing in behind, Chen and Lawrenson, 117 ahead of 911. You can see them in the background, and then where has the Audi of Pratama gone? Well, he's fallen behind both of the Ferraris, hasn't he? So Rama Milana up to 8th, he's brought Huang with him into 9th, and Pratama down to the back end of the top 10.
Yeah, great work from Adika Ramamilano. We didn't see the overtake on screen, but one suggests that maybe Ferrari's working together to try and carve their way through the field. It's a 60-minute race, of course. We're only 5 minutes down on the timer already, but 8th position. If you'd have suggested to Andika Ramamilana at the start of this race that he'd work his way into 8th in the first 5 minutes, he would have snapped your hand off. That's a great start to this race for Andika Ramamilana at the moment. We're looking now at Oscar Loy in the number 650 Lexus. Great to see a Lexus, by the way, running towards the sharp end of the grid in 12th position at the moment, so a couple of places still to be found to get into the all-important point scoring positions, but this has been a good start for the 650 car, currently in 12th start at 15th on the grid. So again, a little bit of drama further up the field opens doors for you to take easy positions, but as the cars, Andy, they're at the heaviest they're going to be at any stage in the race so far. The tyres are cold, the brakes are cold, the drivers are getting in to the spirit of being in racing conditions. This is possibly the best opportunity our drivers have got, isn't it, to make, and I put this in air quotes, easy overtakes on some of their rivals while everything's still so fresh and so raw.
It's also the easiest opportunity to end up getting involved in somebody else's accident, though, isn't it? It's a balancing act. Yes, you want to take advantage of the carnage around you, but you can so easily become a part of that carnage yourself. And we've seen a few winners, but for every winner, there will inevitably be a loser who ended up on the wrong end of that situation. But yeah, certainly we're seeing the Ferraris move forward, the Lexus as well, as you mentioned, of Louis, one of only a couple of Lexuses out there, actually, but running pretty strongly at the moment. Right, Andrew Lawrenson then, the Aussie, in the Laundry House Porsche, right behind the number 117 Porsche of Kelvin Chen in the full pace racing team entry, and ahead of them a BMW, I think, fresh out of the pit lane after, I'm going to presume, some repair work, and that is going to really scupper Lawrence's run there through turn number 3, and that, of course, is something we'll see more and more of as we get deeper into the race. Admittedly, these early cars going a lap down, we wouldn't normally expect to be catching them at this point, but in the second half of the race, the leaders will have a bit of lap traffic to deal with, and we saw there, didn't we, Paul, how easy it is to lose time through no one's fault. You just catch one of those slower cars at the wrong place at the wrong time, and it can cost you half a second minimum.
Yeah, that is an exceptional point, actually, and this is a relatively short lap here at the Zandvoort Grand Prix circuit, and we've got a differential between the very, very fastest drivers and those that are maybe a little bit less experienced further down the running order. So traffic will, without any shadow of a doubt, play a part over the course of this race, especially when people are on different strategies for when they make their mandatory pit stop. Now, as we're looking at Andrew Lawrenson in the Laundry House Porsche, great opening stint to the race for Lawrenson. Started 10th on the grid, already up into 7th place and making a nuisance of himself at the back of the fellow Porsche driver of Kelvin Chen in 6th place. So Lawrenson on the march had again a bad or a disappointing, shall we say, race last time out for the opening round at Brands Hatch. We expect the Laundry House drivers to very much be at the sharp end of the field, so Lawrenson will be very, very keen to start making amends and get his championship charge underway here at Zandvoort, and he's doing that in fine style at the moment, as we're seeing the fellow Laundry House driver being overtaken by Jaap Lam Loos. That's Terry Rayton in the Mercedes, opens the door into the Tarzan hairpin. Lamlaw gets his way through, but Rayton, wise to the manoeuvre, goes for the switchback, takes that position back, and Andy, that's a great piece of respectful racing from those two drivers, isn't it?
Yeah, brilliant racecraft there from Rayton, because he knew that Lamlaw probably wasn't going to get the car stopped. He was on a tighter line in the BMW and he braked later than the Mercedes, so you know, sometimes you just take a step back from that situation and you think, there's no point fighting it. If I try and hang out around the outside, we're probably both going to make contact and end up in the gravel. So Rayton just sidestepped the BMW, let it overshoot the corner, and then, yeah, judged that switchback manoeuvre perfectly. So Mercedes stays ahead of BMW for now. Bakida is the next car behind, isn't it, as well? That's Philippa Bakida then, 16th place for Philippa, although she has recovered quite a few places from where she was halfway around the first lap. So evidently not too much damage done to that McLaren. The front bodywork's been rearranged slightly, but it's withstood the impact remarkably well, and she might now be able to gain a bit more progress. The McLaren does look strong around here. Certainly her second placed effort in qualifying was evidence of that, but now she's got some overtaking to do.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see how Philippa Bakida moves her way up through the running order. Of course, qualified second on the grid, has a fair turn of pace as well in this series that we've seen throughout the course of this year and last. Can Bakida do what she needs to do? Very little, no weight in fact, in the McLaren, so she's running a little bit lighter than some of the cars around us. Once again, Jaap Lam Loos and the Laundry House of Terry Rayton go toe-to-toe, heading down into Tarzan while they're fighting, while they're squabbling over track position. This is exactly what Bakida needs. She needs these two to hold each other up, to work their tyres harder, to concentrate on each other, and then very definitely Bakida will be able to find a way past when the opportunity arises and get an easy overtake and start continuing her charge, because she'll need points from this one, Andy. She will be desperate to score points, but she hasn't got any so far this season, and she started on the front row of the grid, so all is not lost. 16th place, Mia Rose behind as well, the second female racer, starting to buy into the fight as well in the 909 Honda, but these two will be ones to watch. They will be hunting for at least a handful of points away from this weekend.
Yeah, and it's worth stressing, their race is not over. You know, they've got 49 minutes still to go, and you've got the mandatory pit window as well, so if you can maybe pit a little bit early there and get the undercut on some of the drivers around you, that is a way to get back into the race. A couple of incidents, by the way, from race control here that have been investigated. Incident between cars 45, 86 and 91 was deemed to be a racing incident, but we have got a 15-second penalty to car 91, which is Chris Rajanka in the Lamborghini for avoidable contact. So Rajanka with a 15-second penalty there, which is going to be served at his stop, and that will put him even further down the order. Right, back to the other Laundry House Porsche then, into turn number one. The two Porsches here still together for 6th place, Chen ahead of Lawrenson. It's taken me the first 11 and a half minutes of this race, Paul, to get the Laundry House pun, which is about 11 minutes at least longer than it should have done. The iconic Leighton House Formula 1 livery on those cars, which do look absolutely fantastic, and I love a good pun when it comes to team names.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're full of joy, the Australian guys down at Laundry House. They'll take their racing incredibly seriously, but they also like to see the lighter side of things as well. So the Laundry House colour scheme and play on the name is much appreciated by us motor racing fans at home. Everybody likes a nice, iconic, historic Grand Prix livery. But we're looking at Oscar Lee now, 11th position. So Oscar's moving his way ahead of Pratimus. So Pratimus falling backwards in the Audi R8 LMS. He was well inside the top 10 earlier in the race, but now plummeting down into 12th position. And Lamborghini just getting involved there. One of the lap cars coming back out after some repair work down pit road. Does well to stay out of the way. Very difficult to get offline and out of the way of faster cars here at Zandvoort. But that opens the door to Lau quite a bit now in the number 650. Lexus trying to find a way past Yim ahead in the McLaren. McLaren we know is fast, especially in the hands of drivers like Philippa Bakida. It's currently 5th with Wong as well in the number 69 car. So Lee's got his hands full to try and get his way into top 10 and into a place that will pay a singular championship point. But there's still 47 minutes left on the clock. There's still a mandatory pit window, so there's plenty of racing to go.
Speaking of racing, Yatlam Law is trying for about the 5th time now this move on Terry Rayton into turn 1. He's tried the inside, he's tried the outside. This time he tries driving through the Mercedes, and inevitable contact is made. Rayton is sideways and does well to hang on to it, and the BMW goes through. That will be investigated by the stewards, I'm fairly sure. And unfortunately for Terry Rayton, he's going to lose more ground as well. Bakida is only too happy to take the next place away from him, so that's Bakida into 15th place. And I think that, Mia Rose is not quite going to be able to get past her. 2 places lost there for Terry Rayton. Contact in the braking zone into that first corner is never likely to end well. I'd like to see that again, actually, to work out who moved into who. But I think there may be a little bit of frustration that was building up there. Lamlaw had tried that move, as I'd said, on a number of previous occasions. He spent most of the first 15 minutes of the race trying to get past the Mercedes, and around the outside, a little bit too close for comfort. He got the move done, but at what cost?
Yeah, a little bit spicy from those two there. Luckily, everybody lives to fight another day, although Terry Rayton's lost a couple of positions for his trouble. Excuse me. Meanwhile, at the front of the field, all this drama is something not concerning Dayne Warren. The VRS Coanda Simsport driver got pole position, carrying success ballast for his win last time out at Brands Hatch, and has proceeded to go ahead and take a 5+ second advantage in the first 15 minutes of this race. So all is looking very good indeed for the VRS Coanda team at the front of the field. Meanwhile, Mia Rose still nibbling at the back of Terry Rayton. Rayton is having a very difficult phase of the race. Contact that we saw just a lap ago, not quite got the ultimate pace in that Mercedes that he needs. Kelvin Chen, 6th position, doing a good job in the Porsches. The Porsche 6th and 7th position. Another one of the laundry house cars still snapping away at his heels. But Kelvin Chen, good job so far. 6th place in the full pace racing number 117 Porsche 911.
Yeah, these two have sort of met in the middle, haven't they? Because Chen has dropped back from 4th position to 6th, whereas the 911 car has come up from 10th place on the grid. Right, back to the 17th place battle now. Mia Rose still well and truly in this group. You've got Terry Rayton ahead in the Mercedes, another Mercedes behind actually as well. That's the number 25 of Nigel Chua in the Lifestyle Motorsport car. So Mia Rose has 2 of those very rapid Mercedes, one filling the mirrors, one filling the windshield, and that lapped Lamborghini to try and negotiate as well. And that's going to force Mia offline a little bit into turn number 11, but there was no way through on the inside for Chua, so the position stays as it was. There is the Jean Lacey Esports Academy driver, hard at work, chatting away on the radio. 30-second stop-go penalty, meanwhile, for car 27. That is Seok-Yin Ho in the Z Challenger Racing Aston Martin for avoidable contact. So, we're seeing a little bit of that, aren't we, in the early stages. It often takes the people in race control just a little bit of time to catch up on everything that happened on the opening lap or so. There was quite a bit of action in those first few laps, but the race is now settling down quite nicely at the front. And I tell you what, Paul, as well as this fight for 5th, there could be a tasty one for 2nd developing very shortly, because the 2 Bentleys of Aslan and Rachmat are slowly but surely reeling in the tanky long Ferrari in 2nd place. There's now less than a second between 2nd and 3rd, and the same back to 4th.
Fantastic stuff starting to develop. Tanki Long that we're looking at now in the second place car, sister car to Andika Ramamolano that's currently running down in 8th position. The Ferraris, as we said earlier in the show, don't seem to quite have the turn of speed that the Bentley Continental GT3 has underneath it at the moment, and actually Tanki Long is losing significant amount of time on this lap to the 2 chasing Bentleys, so it's only a matter of time now till Aslan and Rachmat get themselves onto the back of this fight. And Fadil Rachmat, let's remember, is 3rd in the championship standings, so it's critically important for Fadil to get as many points on the board as he possibly can from this race. And Aslan and Key Long not necessarily in the fight after the opening round of the season, so Rachmat will see this as an opportunity. I dare say Warren at the head of the pack is a little bit too far up the road, as now we're looking at Skylay in 22nd position in the beautiful looking Audi R8 LMS. Got another Audi alongside. The inside becomes the outside for the number 225. Run him out of racetrack. Yes, he will. Gives him a little bit of racing room actually. So this is Cheng now on the inside into the penultimate corner. Keeps the car nice and tight. Plenty of racing room between the two of them. This is going to be a dangerous move around the outside. Will he be given racing room? Yes, he will. And that there is a great bit of respect from those two. Now diving back up the inside for the slipstream. There's 2 more cars trying to buy into the fight as well. Coming down into Tarzan. The Honda NSX doesn't quite have enough of an overlap, and in fact loses out to the Lexus behind. And that's 3 or 4 corners of fabulous front back racing from all 4 of these drivers, and just shows the quality. This is for 23rd on the field. Brilliant stuff.
No, you'd think it was for the race lead, wouldn't you? But I tell you what, not a hint of contact there in any of that. I mean, the 2 Audis went side by side for about 4 or 5 corners there, and not once did they trade any paint. Really, really good stuff, that. Now, we've gone from Audis at play to 2 Porsches, and this could be the chance maybe for Kelvin Chen to get up the inside. There was a mistake there from the 69 of Pak Ho Wong as they went through turn number 11, but the next corner is this right-hand entry to the 12 and 13 chicane, so the only way Chen's going to make that work is to brave it out round the outside through the right to get the inside for the left. That doesn't happen though, and so Wong fends him off once again, but these two are now the better part of 3 seconds adrift of that second place battle, so Chen really could do with getting on with this here, but of course it's difficult to overtake a car that is the same as yours, because both of these cars being Porsches, they're both going to make their lap time in very similar ways. They'll both be quick at similar parts of the track, so it all comes down to what I said at the start of the show, either forcing a mistake out of the driver in front or going for one of those risky 50-50 moves up the inside under braking, and with still just over 2/3 of the race to go, I don't think it's time for Kelvin to start throwing quite everything at this. He can afford to be patient for a bit longer.
He can, but Chen's looking very, very loose in the number 117, just getting a little bit sideways on acceleration. We've got a 15-second penalty for Wong in 5th position as well, so the number 69 takes a 15-second penalty. That will drop him down the running order, but Kelvin Chen looking very much the less comfortable of these 2 Porsches. Lawrenson just keeping the car nice and tight, nice and calm, looking after his tyres, protecting his car, trying to pressurise Kelvin Chen ahead, trying to fill the mirrors of the number 117. That's confirmation of the penalty for the number 69 Pak Ho Wong in the McLaren 720S. 5th position on the grid. 15 seconds will be added to his race time. That will run him significantly down the order. So this is a fight, Andy, for 6th position, but in reality it's a fight for 5th position. And while these two squabble and lose time, Andika Ramamalana closing, trying to get bought into the fight, and further up the field the Bentley's starting to swarm his teammate for 2nd position as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Raman Milana could find himself in contention for a top 5 here before the end of the race, depending on how the middle portion with the mandatory pit stop in it plays out. But yeah, that's very frustrating, isn't it, for Lawrenson, because he still has to physically get past the car ahead of Chen, but actually he's ahead of him on corrected time. You'd think that that would benefit him, but actually the car that's got the penalty is still physically holding him up on track. Drive-through penalty, meanwhile, for car 33. That's Mohamed Andri Abareski in the Lamborghini for avoidable contact with car 45. Krankrajā Teamers BMW. So again, some more of those midfield incidents from early on, just being caught up with now by race control. Second place battle though, it is now starting to come to life, isn't it? The two Bentleys, as you said, of Aslan and Rachmat have caught Tanki Long, but now they need to try and find a way past the 144 Ferrari. That's not the way to do it. Aslan with two wheels on the grass there, turning into turn number 10. Very easy to do that though, isn't it, Paul? The track keeps on going right all the way between the exit of turn 9 and the entry to turn 10. And of course you want to be as far to the left-hand side of the track as possible, but it is quite easy, especially when you hit the brakes, just to drift a bit too far to the left. Did well to hang on to that.
You did indeed, and of course you get a little bit of tunnel vision when you're following another driver as well. You focus so heavily on the back of the car ahead that sometimes you can be a little bit disorientated about the surroundings, and as you say, dropping a wheel on the outside of the racetrack is a surefire way to spin you off into the barriers. So great that car of Aslan managed to avoid doing that one, and the fight for second place continues. Andrew Lawrenson still in 7th position in the Laundry House 911 Porsche, finding a way past Chen ahead. This will be becoming increasingly frustrating for Lawrenson, but don't forget, while the Australian driver is pushing hard and trying to find the way past, he's working his tyres harder than he would ideally like to be doing. He's getting the dirty air effect from Chen's Porsche ahead, which means the car is inducing more understeer in the car on corner entry. It's causing more oversteer on corner exit as you push through that disturbed air. That will wear his tyres faster. He's carrying success ballast as well, and that could potentially have a negative impact as the stint winds down towards the end of this 60-minute race. As we're looking again now at Nikib Aslan, 3rd position. I suggested earlier in the broadcast, Andy, that these two Bentleys were catching hand over fist on the Ferrari, but it does look like Q Long has found a little bit more pace. He's dug deep and found some more lap time in that Ferrari and is gapping these two cars at present.
Yeah, I would suggest that maybe Aslan's had a moment somewhere there in the first sector, because the gap was quite small between 2nd and 3rd, Tanki Long and Aslan at the line, and then when we cut to them 2 or 3 corners into the lap, that gap had shot back out to now just over a second, as Aslan starts to become a bit more preoccupied with what's going on in his mirrors, with the arrival well and truly now of Rachmat on his tail. The two Porsches still as close as ever they were. Just to correct myself, I misread the timing screen earlier on. I thought it was Kelvin Chen that had the penalty. It is not, of course. It's the 69 McLaren of Pak Ho Wong, who is up the road from these two. So neither of the Porsches have a penalty, but they both are set to gain a position each when that McLaren ahead of them serves its 15-second penalty. Across the line they go then. Another lap in the books. We're ticking towards halfway then, Paul. And we know what that means. Pit stops are incoming.
And this, when we get pit stops, when the mandatory pit window opens, is when things can change so significantly. We've seen it many times in SRO Esport competition. Sometimes the undercut, sometimes the overcut. The drivers have to get the pit lane speed limit just right, hit it just at the exact moment they need to slow the car down. They need to stop on their spots absolutely perfectly to not incur a delayed pit stop. They may or may not add fuel into the car significant amounts or change tyres, and all these little things, including the in-lap speed, the out-lap speed when your tyres are cold, when your brakes are cold, these all add up, and this is going to be one of the biggest opportunities for many of our drivers to find a way past. If you can overtake down pit lane, you take away all the jeopardy, you take away all the drama of trying to affect an overtake out on the circuit. Is Yaplan Law now 14th position in the BMW M6 GT3, trying to find a way past Thanel Appelin in 13th place. Can he find a way past before the pit window opens now? So watch out for drivers coming down pit road. Look at the timing screen on the left hand side. You'll see an orange box with number 1 on it. That means drivers have yet to serve their pit stop. When that box goes green, the driver has served their mandatory pit stop. Everyone needs to go green in the next 10 minutes, and Andy, I'm predicting quite a bit of drama over these next 10 minutes.
Definitely going to see it have an effect, I think, on the order, aren't we? Of course, the temptation, if you're someone like Lamlaw, for example, here in the BMW, you're getting held up by the car ahead. The temptation is to pit early, the expectation being that you'll rejoin the track in clean air and be able to perform the undercut. But of course, you have no real way of knowing where you're going to rejoin. You could rejoin in an even worse traffic jam than you were in before you pitted. I can see that Andrew Lawrenson has pitted. He was another one that I suspected might be tempted by the early pit stop, because he was getting held up by Kelvin Chen's 117 Porsche. So 1 or 2 drivers taking this early opportunity to make their way down the pit lane. But will it work out? It is all about where they rejoin the circuit, and if they're still in traffic, then they could end up losing time rather than gaining.
Now that is an intelligent move by Lawrenson. We saw him very much in the heat of battle for pretty much the whole of the opening 25 minutes of this race. So as you say, Lawrenson trying to find himself a little bit of clean air, trying to find himself a little bit of racetrack where he can unleash the ultimate potential of the number 911 Porsche. So we'll keep our eye on Lawrenson. You can see him falling down the running order now, of course, because he's one of the first of the leading drivers to have made his mandatory pit stop. At the top of the screen in the middle, 8 minutes and 9 seconds remain of the pit window. And just a quick one for everybody at home, just a little correction. Andy and I got very excited about success ballast because in the heat of the moment we forgot there's not success ballast in this championship. It is a custom balance of performance applied by the event organisers on a per track basis. So not success ballast per se, but these cars are balanced in accordance with the event organisers' feelings for each individual round and championship. So our apologies there, we got a little bit too excited, a little bit too quickly about all the drama that's happening as we're looking now at Sky Lee in 19th position in the number 127 Audi R8 LMS.
Yeah, absolutely. And the point of that BOP, of course, is not necessarily just to look at who went well in the previous race, as success ballast would do, but instead to kind of look ahead to which cars are going to have the edge at each specific circuit. And it seems to be working. We've got good variety inside the top 10. We've got Bentleys, 3 Bentleys, so they definitely seem to be strong. We've got 3 Ferraris as well, plus a McLaren, an Audi and a BMW, so a good variety of car, a mix of front and mid-engined as well, so that custom BOP does seem to be doing its job, doesn't it? Right, this fight for second place has just sort of died a death here, hasn't it? And I wonder if maybe the pit stops are going to reinvigorate the scrap, because Ratchmat has dropped back a bit from Aslan. Neither of them are closing back in on Tanky Long ahead, so who's going to blink first out of these 3? If I was Tanky Long, I would be tempted maybe to pit early, because what we would expect to happen here is the Bentleys running further back on track position might pit early to try and get that undercut, but maybe Tanky Long might double bluff them here and come in a little bit earlier. We'll find out now, because they're coming out of the final corner. Pit lane entry is just to the right here. We're getting a 5-second penalty for car 12. That's Jiacheng Jiang in his Bentley, I'm afraid, for contact earlier on. And none of these 3 drivers, to answer my question, make their way into the pit lane. In fact, it doesn't look like anyone within the top half dozen or so are going to pit this time. So the majority of the front runners staying out, although Rama Milana is in, I noticed. So Rama Milana in, so too Pratama and Lam Law. That's not worked out well for Lam Law, has it? If he'd have known Pratama was pitting, he might have been tempted to stay out a lap longer himself.
Yeah, I find this mighty interesting when I'm looking at a high-level race like this. The idea of pitting in and around the same window as your immediate rivals out on circuit just feels like the wrong thing to do for me. As you see, the front 3 drivers, second, third and fourth, should I say, they're all equal speed. They're all struggling to find a way past each other. Do something different. Go for the counter strategy. Try and roll the dice, because the overtake on track is looking increasingly unlikely. Do something different, see if it opens up an opportunity. Andrew Lawrenson tried that tactic, one of the first of the front runners down pit road. It doesn't seem to be working out too good for Lawrenson at the moment, as he's stuck behind Luis Moreno, I think that is, maybe, I'm not quite sure actually which car that is. It's one of the Lamborghini drivers that Lawrenson's behind, so a little bit of traffic for Andrew Lawrenson. Will need to carve his way through that one quickly, but he is currently, interestingly, the highest place of the drivers that have been down pit road, with Rama Milana hot on his tail in 12th.
Yeah, this is the risk though, isn't it? This is what I alluded to at the start of the pit window. You don't have any real way of calculating specifically where you're going to drop back out onto the track. You'd love to drop back out in clean air, and perhaps if Lawrenson had spent maybe 1 second less in the pit lane, he might have been able to do that, but as it is, he's got a bit of traffic to negotiate ahead of him. Ratchmat is in, by the way, so that answers my question from a lap ago as to which of those 3 cars fighting for second would blink first. It is the 62 Bentley that was at the back of the pack, so again, makes perfect sense for him to be in first. Terry Rayton, is in the Laundry House Mercedes. We've got Huang is in as well in the 118 Ferrari. So Ratchmat, you would expect to come out ahead of Andrew Lawrenson. He was ahead of Andrew on the track before the pit stop cycle began, but how much time has Andrew been able to gain here by pitting earlier? We know he's in traffic now, but he might not have been since he first went back out on track. Well, he does rejoin still behind Ratchmat, but look at that, a stop-go 30-second penalty for Huang. That is big drama for the driver that is 5th in the championship. The 118 car will have to pit once again for a 30-second penalty.
Oh, that is such a devastating sight for a driver to see on their heads-up display. A stop-go 30-second penalty. Come down pit lane, bring the car to a stop in your box and wait for what feels like an absolute eternity. Just 30 seconds when your rivals are going full speed out on track. And sadly, I'm afraid to say for Huang, that has put pay to any chances of possibly even a top 20 result in this race. So a simple mistake, I would suggest it's probably a case of speeding on pit road, so not getting that pit lane speed limiter on in time, and that is race over in terms of points paying positions for Huang in 9th on track at the moment. But that will move everybody at one. Rama Milana, the man that we're looking at now, currently in 10th place behind that Ferrari that we've just been speaking of in 9th position. Rama Milana will be aware that his rival has got a penalty to serve. He'll know he needs to serve it in the next 3 laps, or he will be disqualified. So Rama Milana will be a little bit reluctant to put an overtaking manoeuvre on the car at this stage in the race, hoping that he jumps very quickly down pit road. But somebody has worked out well for is Andrew Lawrenson. He's jumped 1 or 2 little cars. Ratchmat's still ahead of him as we expected. It takes a while for the timing screens to update themselves here in Assetto Corsa Competizione as we're waiting for everybody to cross the line. And we suggested, Andy, that there's going to be quite dramatic, didn't we? And it's proven to be very much the case.
Yeah, and it ain't over yet, is it? The race leader has just pitted, so that thankfully appears to have been a clean pit stop. That means we're just waiting then, of our front runners at least, for 3 of them to pit. And we know that Wong has this 15-second penalty to serve as well. Bakida has been in, so we'll see where Philippa drops back out. Remember, she should have been somewhere not too far behind this little group, actually, maybe just outside the top 10 by the time it all cycles out. There, though, is Dayne Warren, the VRS Coanda Simsport team, who are so strong in pretty much every competition that they enter, it seems, and Dayne Warren is dominating this race. There are no two ways about it. He's 7.8 seconds ahead of the next car that has pitted, that being Aslan. Now, we would expect 1 or 2 drivers maybe to slot in between them once the pit stop cycle is done, and that might be about to happen now because Tanki Long is in the Ferrari. And this is interesting, isn't it, Paul? Because Aslan pitted early. Will that leapfrog him ahead of the 2 cars that were ahead of him before the pit stop cycle?
Yeah, this is the one to watch out for now. Tanki Long has got the race lead courtesy of the cycle of pit stops. He's coming down pit road now. You can see it in the corner of your screen. So can he make it out of pit road? Can he get back up to speed as well? Don't forget that there's an element of your car will be slower, more difficult to drive to the first few corners on pit road exit. We're looking now, second position. That's an Audi on a different lap gone past. So Tanki Long, I think, has done what he needs to do to secure. Yes, he has, because there's the white Bentley behind of Aslan. So that worked out brilliant for Key Long. Retained second position. Aslan, very much as you were, just a second or so behind. And one of the drivers that's dropped quite far back is Rajmat. Remember, these 3 were pretty much as one in the battle for second position, but finally Rajmat has lost track position, actually, I think, to a couple, no, not track position as the screen updates itself, but has lost a good handful of seconds to this little battle.
Yeah, well, Rashmat was less than a second behind Aslan, wasn't he? And he's now 3.5 back, so the early pit stop really didn't work out at all for Fadli Rashmat then, who has dropped down. He holds his track position, as you say, but he's now got a lot of work to do over the remaining 25 minutes to try and get back into podium contention. Huang is in to serve that stop-go 30-second penalty, by the way. And just like that, Paul, we're out the other side of the pit window. That 10 minutes went by very quickly. Everyone has stopped. Dayne Warren has retained his race lead, but still some great battles going on behind. Pratama then back into the top 10. Wong here, we are focusing on the number 69. Paco Wong, after his penalty, of course, is just outside the top 10. And he's got a lapped BMW right behind. So what progress can the Z Challenger Racing McLaren make then over the remaining 25 minutes or so of the race? He's 1.5 seconds behind Pratama and Bakida, and they're only about a second behind Thanalapanan as well. So a few more places could be gained here by Wong. We know he has top 5 pace, but now he's going to have to fight his way into the points.
Right, 24 minutes on the clock, mandatory pit stops have been served. Let's take stock for a moment and see who some of the winners and some of the losers are through that pit stop phase. Rachmat, we've already spoke about, was very much in the heat of battle for second, third and fourth, has lost 3 seconds to the chasing pack, so a little bit of time lost, plenty of time to make that one back up again. Rama Milana now finds himself in 6th position. He was 8th when the pit stop cycle started, so another couple of positions for Andika Rama Milana in 6th place. We've got Philippa Bakida. Remember, she started on the front row of the grid, got involved in an early instant with her rivals and dropped all the way down to the lower reaches at the top 20, so a great recovery drive from Bakida. She's on course for at least a couple of points if she stays where she is at the moment with 23 minutes left on the clock. We've got Terry Rayton all the way down in 20th position. Rayton, robust defence he's been showing through the first half of the race, now got plenty of work ahead of him if he's wanting to get back into the fighting positions. Mia Rose, the second of our female drivers, currently in 12th, just slowed down a little bit in the battle with the number 69 McLaren ahead, but Mia Rose still very much sniffing out a point scoring opportunity if she possibly can. And Thana Lappalan in 8th position in the number 28 McLaren, also having a good shake of it during the pit window cycle. So exactly as we said, Andy, overall pace is one thing, looking after your car is an entirely different thing. Racing with your rivals is critically important, but having the right strategy and the right shakeout of luck goes a long way to getting a good result in this championship, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, and we've seen a combination of all of the above here, haven't we, really, from Rama Milano, who has come up into 6th place now, would you believe? I mean, he was 8th before the pit cycle, so he made some really good overtakes and really sensible decisions in the early laps to stay out of trouble. He moved up a few places before the pit cycle, bridged the gap to the next group as well, and then timed his pit stop well, executed his pit stop well, took advantage of other people making mistakes and getting penalties, and here he is now in the top 6 and only 4.5 seconds behind Andrew Lawrenson in the 911 Porsche, who did, by the way, take a big chunk of time, didn't he, out of Kelvin Chen. In fact, Rama Milana has split those two Porsches now, and remember, Chen was ahead of both of them before the pit stop cycle. Drive through for 650, that is Oscar Louis, I'm afraid, for contact with number 25, which is Nigel Chua. That was on the 19th lap of the race, so a little while ago now, and that will be another drive-through penalty. You can see that represented on the screen, and in fact he has the similar Lexus here, doesn't he, and Moreno right behind him, so Moreno is about to gain a pretty easy position here when this drive-through is served.
It is, and Luis Moreno actually will be quite disappointed with 17th place. The Legion of Racers driver, somebody has suggested at the top of the show, might be one to keep an eye out and expect to score a good result, if not quite in the points paying positions. But Moreno having a difficult race, the Lexus not quite being ideally suited to the Zandvoort Grand Prix circuit. It's a great car, we don't see much of it in top level SRO Esports competition, unfortunately, for various reasons, but it's a very compliant car to drive. It inspires confidence in the driver. We're looking at Moreno in the picture there as he catches a little bit of opposite lock through the penultimate corner of the lap, through the Aaron Lyondike block, now onto the start finish straight. And it's a shame to see this beautiful car not quite sharp end of the grid, but Moreno takes a position, moves up to 16th as his teammate jumps down pit road for that drive-through penalty. But sadly, Andy, there's not a lot of action happening in front or behind Luis Moreno, so it's going to be a long last 20 minutes of this race.
Yeah, he was probably quite looking forward to a battle there, wasn't he, with a similar Lexus, but that unfortunately will not happen. This, though, thankfully, is a battle that is going to ignite, isn't it? This is Thana Lappanan having been caught by the recovering Philippa Bakida here, who, remember, started on the front row, was challenging for the lead on lap 1, had a spin coming out of the bank left-hander at turn 4, and has been recovering ever since. Now, I suggest that 8th place might be as good as it gets now for Bakida, without any issues for those ahead, because these two are about 8 seconds, I think it said just then, behind the 7th place car. Yeah, 8.3 seconds behind Calvin Chen's Porsche, in 7th place. So Bakida, to an extent, can afford to take her time here, but She won't. I know she won't, because she's been overtaking people left, right and centre. And when you're in one of those races, Paul, I'm sure you have experienced this yourself, when you're recovering and you're passing people almost every lap, you just want to keep making that progress. You don't even consider whether this will be the last overtake you make. You just know that you're quicker than the car in front and you want to make the move as quickly as possible.
Absolutely right, and every good driver, good racing driver knows as well, a race is not over until the checkered flag has been waved. All Philippa Bakida needs to do, if she clears Thana Lappinen ahead, is she needs one mistake from the driver in front. She needs one driver to go outside of the track limits just that one too many times and get themselves a time penalty, and suddenly you've got an open door, a gift of an opportunity to move yet further up the championship table into the heavier point scoring positions. But whatever happens now, in the last 18 and a half minutes, whatever happens to Philippa Bakida, whether she overtakes and moves forward or whether she throws the car off the circuit and has an accident, it has been a barnstorming drive from the number 326 McLaren 720. Bakida's shown incredible pace. We were surprised that she wasn't in the sharp end of the field at Brands Hatch. She's come back here at Zandvoort, put a great qualifying result in, made contact in the opening stages somewhat throughout, no fault of her own, dropped all the way down the running order but kept ahead. Didn't allow the pressure to get to her, didn't rage quit, didn't do anything silly to put herself in even more drama. She just got on with the job, unleashed her natural pace, made decisive overtaking manoeuvres, made intelligent pit stop decisions, didn't put the car in a position where it can be risked, did everything and more she needs to do, and so far the reward is 9th place, but I wouldn't bet against Philippa Bakida finding a way past the number 28 of Thana Lappinen ahead within the next 17 and a half.
Yeah, absolutely. And Bakida, I'm reliably informed by Tom Hornsby from SRO, thank you as ever for the free information, Tom, won Asia's AM Championship last year, so absolutely no slouch, Philippa Bakida, demonstrating that in this race. Right then, what's going on here? Well, this is Pratama, who seems to have spent the entire race focusing on his rear view mirror. There always seems to be a car behind him that maybe looks a little bit quicker. It's Wong at the moment recovering from this penalty in 11th. BMW behind them is a lap down, but keeping pace with them quite strongly actually at the moment. Lamborghini there that has either pulled out of their way or has just had a bit of a meeting with the Armco barrier. Again, that car running down the order though, so the battle for 10th place can continue, and this is important because it is for that last championship point. You might not think that scoring 1 point is worth taking a huge risk, but I don't know, there's something psychological about that, isn't there, Paul? If a driver sees a chance to get just that one championship point, oh, he's on the grass though, never mind, Marco Wonga's made a right mess of that. That is exactly what this man, Aslan, did earlier on, isn't it? Except Aslan saved it. This time the McLaren goes off the road. But yeah, that was that pressure, wasn't it, of just trying to move into the top 10. It may only be one championship point, but there's something psychologically quite important for a driver about finishing in the points.
Oh, absolutely. You want a reward for all the hard work that you've put in, because this is, I say, only a 60-minute race, but it's not just a race. There'll be weeks and weeks of preparation these drivers have put in between some of them. Our last race was the 20th of May. It's the 24th of June now, so there'll be lots of testing, training, tweaking your setup, doing long runs, seeing how the fuel and the car behaves, maybe working with your teammates or your race engineer or something along those lines. This is the end result of a lot of work and dedication, and you want to come away from it with something, silverware ideally, but certainly at a bare minimum a point. And on top of that one, this is a championship, it's a 5-round championship, so not only do you want the actual physical point, you also be able to want to put one over on your rivals, don't you, to say, hey, last time out I beat you. If I see you in one of the future races, you know that I've beat you, and you're going to think twice about defending against me or attacking against me as well. So that'll be really, really interesting to see how much effort and time people continue to put in for those final points. And Pratama currently on the bubble in 10th position in the number 18.
Indeed. Into the pit lane, by the way, I'm afraid, has just gone the 939 BMW. That was Yatlam Law serving a drive-through penalty, I believe, there, as a result of an incident earlier on. Just saw that. There we go. Drive-through penalty for avoidable contact with car 85, which was Terry Rayton. So that was that incident. If you cast your mind back what feels like about 3 hours ago, but it was in reality about half an hour ago, that little bit of contact into turn 1 that saw Rayton lose out. I did have a feeling that might be a bit of a 50-50 decision. So the stewards have just taken a bit longer to ponder that one, but they have decided eventually the BMW driver was to blame. Right, second place, Nakib Aslan here in the Axel Sports Bentley has re-caught the 144 Ferrari of Dylan Tanky Long. Now, where does he pass? The Bentley, we know, is good in a straight line. We know it's also decent on the brakes, but of course the Ferrari is going to have the advantage through the tight and technical circuits. It's one of the good things about this Zandvoort track, isn't it, Paul? It's got a bit of everything. It's got the high-speed, long corners out the back here, which will suit that big front-engine Bentley, but it's also got those really tight sections through Sector 1 and then the end of Sector 2 and into Sector 3, where the mid-engine cars excel, and that is why, again, we're seeing great competition between these really different cars. It's one of the great things about GT3 racing. The cars all look and sound, for what it's worth, completely different, and yet because of things like this BOP this week, it keeps the racing nice and close, and it means no one car seems to have a big advantage.
And this, Andy, I've said it many, many times before, and I will say many, many times again in the future, I'm sure, is why I absolutely love GT3 racing. As you say, such variety, so different. Different cars, different sounds, different sights, different smells, apart from these two, which are identical, and it's absolutely wonderful to see it. And when you get drivers in the championships such as this, the GT World Challenge Esports Asia Sprint Series, at such a high level that they're performing at, it is fabulous to watch this race. And it might not be real life, we might not be at the trackside with our jumpers on, getting cold, fighting the breeze, watching these cars, but the racing is very much the real deal, as we see now the battle for 17th position. So this is Sky Lee in the 17th place number 127 Zuvia Revolt Racing Team car, currently ahead of the number 225, which is Ho Fai Cheng in the Z Challenger Racing sister Audi R8 LMS. But I just want to go back to that battle for second position again, if I may. One really, really good thing that the second and third place drivers have is, because of the pit window, there's now a significant gap between third and fourth place, so you don't have to concentrate, do you, on looking at your mirrors and trying to make sure you don't make a mistake. You can put all the effort into finding a way past and securing that second place, which, as a driver with just 12 minutes left on the clock, is really, really important, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly, and you also don't have to worry about being caught by the cars behind, because Ratchmat is no quicker than these two, so he's not going to catch them unless they really start holding each other up, which, with 12 minutes to go, it could happen, I suppose, but you're sometimes worried about that, aren't you? If you're a second maybe ahead of the car behind, and you know that you could start putting the pressure on the car ahead and maybe find a way through, you're always worried that if they start really defending and you end up going side by side for a couple of corners, that 1 second advantage can disappear within a couple of corners. So you have to play it clever sometimes and work out, right, is it worth really forcing the driver ahead to start driving defensively, because it could actually end up backing me into my opposition. But yeah, a 3 second gap means that Aslan can have a couple of stabs at this before he really has to worry about Ratchmat closing in behind. Andrew Lawrenson, remember, is still 5th, 5.3 seconds behind Ratchmat, so that is not looking particularly likely to change. This is the fight then, isn't it, for second place, the Ferrari versus the Bentley. And actually, through this technical first sector, the Bentley, to my surprise, Paul, looks like the stronger package. It's got such a good front end on that Bentley, hasn't it, though? So if you've got the setup right and you are driving it correctly, it can be surprisingly good through those tight and technical sections as well.
And I think actually you've touched on a very, very important topic, and that's setup. These drivers have their own custom setups that they're built. It's not a fixed setup race, so you can build the setup in such a way that your car is fast at the beginning and loses pace towards the end of the race, or a car that you can look after in the early stages of the event and then comes alive and carries a little bit more speed towards the checkered flag. And I would suggest that Nakib Aslan in the number 17 Bentley that we're looking at now has maybe got a car designed to come alive and be on its toes a little bit more in the final stages of this race, and that's started to pay dividends. Now you can visually see the gap between these two drivers beginning to close out on the circuit. There's only 10 minutes left on the clock. There's only realistically time for 5, 6, 7 more laps of this race, maybe a little bit less, and Aslan doing what he can to put that Ferrari under pressure to make it so the driver ahead is concentrating more on discovering what's happening behind him than he is on finding the ultimate way round this race circuit, as the fight for 17th and 18th continues at a pace a little bit further down the running order.
Yeah, Sky Lie here in the Zuva Revolt Racing Audi, just about hanging on to this 17th place, isn't he? Still, from Ho-Fi Cheng ahead, behind, I should say, in the Z Challenger racing car, which looks maybe a bit better there through the chicane, but you just can't go anywhere. As long as the car in front doesn't run wide there, you can't drive through it, and it's very hard to drive around it as well, because it's a narrow, tight part of the circuit. Now, a good exit from the final corner, though, could give Cheng the chance to have a go across the start-finish line, but that dirty air just means he runs a bit wide out of the last corner, gets two wheels in the dirt. He is close, though, and could have a bit of a go up the inside. He's going to go for it, is he? This for 16th place, and it stays the same order with Lai ahead of Fai Cheng. Just no way through there. These two cars, you know that if you're in an Audi and you're defending from another Audi, then you know that as long as you hit your marks, they're not going to be able to brake significantly later than you, because there just isn't the chance to do that in identical cars. Now, this has changed, hasn't it? Aslan is into second position, so there's been some fairly major drama here towards the front pole.
He has indeed. So Aslan in second, Rajman in third, Lawrenson now up to fourth, and Rama Milana into fifth position. So we've had some drivers. We're looking down the list, we can't see him, so potentially we've had a disconnect for our second place runner. So drama in 8 minutes and 13 seconds left on the clock. Nahib Aslan moves into second position without needing to make an overtaking manoeuvre, and that, if it's true, if it has been a disconnect, then that is such an incredibly disappointing way to end what has been a fabulous drive up to this point for the Ferrari man.
Oh, that is heartbreaking, isn't it? It's unfair, really, isn't it? It's the sim racing equivalent of a sort of electrical gremlin with your car, isn't it, really? And, real racing, we have things that are outside the driver's control that take them out of the races as well. And actually, one of the good things about sim racing is that really, mechanically speaking, you are far less likely to have the car let you down than you would in real life. But sadly, you also need your PC and your internet connection to withstand the entire duration of the race. That is a real shame. They've one of the standout performers of the race, the only Ferrari that has really been running strongly inside the top 10 all race long. Right, back to this fight then for 16th place. Lai and Fai Cheng still nose to tail. That time though, Lai just had to defend the inside a bit more heavily into turn number 1, and that almost gave the chance for Fai Cheng to go around the outside in the red and black Audi. It didn't quite happen though on that occasion, and now he'll have to sit there probably for the best part of another lap, won't he, before he gets another chance to move through. Bakida, of course, has gained out of this as well, hasn't she? In fact, everybody has, outside of the top two, really. Aslan moves up a place to second, so does Rachmat. Also, significantly, Rama Milana, second in the championship, is now in the top 5. I mean, I never would have predicted that 50-odd minutes ago, Paul.
Yeah, at a track like Zandvoort, where the overtaking is so difficult, in a field that's as strong as it is here in the Asia Series, right at the very sharp end, to go from 12th to currently 5th is a fantastic result for Rama Milan. We're looking at Philippa Bakida now, so two McLarens as one in the fight for 7th position. Philippa Bakida, as we saw, qualified second, had a little incident at the start of the race, moved up all the way down the running order, and has been on a fabulous recovery drive so far. Bakida, 8th position at the moment, trying everything in her power to make this the longest McLaren in the history of the world, going every which way and over the top of Thanel Appelen for 7th position. Only 5 minutes and 50 seconds in which for this fight to wrestle its way to conclusion. As further down the running order we have contact. That was sadly somewhat inevitable, and Fai Cheng comes off the worst of those two cars, loses a little bit of time, and that's taken a sting out of the tail now for that fight. But back to 7th and 8th position, Philippa Bakida doesn't quite have a close enough gap yet to take advantage of the slipstream, but this race at Ande is very much cooking up to boiling point now for these two, I think.
Yes, boiling point is the phrase to use to describe quite a bit of the stuff that's happening in this race at the moment, because Yatlam Law has been given another penalty now for contact, this time with the 77 of Yugo Osaki. But yeah, that incident between the pair of Audis there, I'm not going to pretend to be a fortune teller, but I could kind of see that one coming, because Cheng kept on trying, didn't he, into that first corner. He was always stuck on the outside line, and so you did kind of suspect he might try something a bit more adventurous to get to the inside at some point. It didn't quite work. Right then, this for 11th place now then, and this is Mia Rose in the Honda NSX, just about fending off the 969 of Kinlong Lee in the Mercedes. The Mercedes, again, we know is usually pretty handy in a straight line, so maybe there's a chance to attack here into turn number 1. And this is significant because it's for 11th place, so if any one of the 10 drivers ahead of them have an issue here in the final 4.5 minutes or so, it could elevate one or maybe both of these into a top 10 scoring position. The move doesn't happen there though into turn 1, and so the Honda stays ahead for the time being.
Yep, great little battle developing here between Mia Rose and Kinlan Lee. Kinlan leading the Mercedes for Wacko's Flip Table Racing, which is an exceptionally cool esports racing team name, chasing down the Jean Lacey Esports Academy driver of Mia Rose in the Honda NSX ahead. And as you say, outside of the points at the moment, so this is all very much a case of just overtake for personal pride and for a finishing position. But we've seen it many, many times already. One small incident for a driver in front, you're in the points, you got a little point to your name, happy days, that goes towards your championship challenge. But just remind everybody at home real quick, hello by the way, if you're just joining us, thank you for joining the championship here for round 2 at Zandvoort. The top 5 drivers from today will automatically be eligible to join the next race at Mazzano on July the 22nd. Everybody from 6th place down will have to go into a hot lap qualification competition as Mia Rose goes on the defensive into the chicane. She does a good job to get the car slowed down, keeps it nice and tight on exit, not opening the door for Long Lee to find a way past in the Mercedes. This fight continues, but yep, the top 5 automatically go through. The rest of the field will have to qualify, and that's a big ask for Mazzano, because Mazzano, isn't it, Andy? It's one of those tracks where you love it or you loathe it.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always quite enjoyed it actually, but I can understand why some people don't. It is very, very technically demanding. Lots of corners coming at you in a fairly short space of time, but good fun when you get the car working right, I've found. 5-second penalty for car 225, which is Ho-Fai Cheng for aggressive driving against the 127, which I'm going to hazard a guess was Skylar. Yes, it was. So that's for the contact at turn 1 that we saw a lap or two ago. So it didn't take the stewards too long to decide who was to blame there. We also, whilst you were talking there, saw the attempted overtake again there for with Mia Rose just about hanging on to that 11th place. Wherever you look here though, there are great battles going on right the way down through the field. This is for 25th place. Panchinda there in the Lexus starting to feel the heat from the Aston Martin behind. Aston Martin, for whatever reason, not a very popular car in this series, it would seem. Only 1 or 2 of them out there. None of them are troubling the points at the moment. I think the highest placed one is Rishad Banerjee in the 86 car, running in 19th place overall. But yeah, maybe this track in particular not suiting the Aston Martin. But yeah, shame not to see more of those cars out on track. A minute and a half or so left here, Paul. Then the leader has just started a lap, so I think we should have time for this lap and one more, I reckon. But we are getting into the closing stages of the race now.
We are indeed, and it's such a great race this has been on the GT World Challenge YouTube channel, so do make sure to give us a like and a follow to never miss the action. This is the GT World Challenge Asia Sprint Series. We've got an endurance series for the Asia region drivers as well. Of course, we also race in the Americas and the Europe and the Pro Championship as well. So the SRO Esports series of events continues to grow and get stronger year on year. And while I'm on the topic, a big shout out to the event organisers and broadcasters. These drivers are all located in the Asia region. So we've got some people in Australia, some in Macau, South Korea. We've got a lot of drivers very, very, very far away from where ourselves are commentating here. That feed goes to them. They race on their local server. That feed goes back to the hub that looks after the broadcast, and the commentary gets mixed into that. The pictures come out to us for us to commentate over, and then it goes out to yourselves at home on the broadcast. So an absolutely fantastic technical achievement from everybody involved to bring this championship, as Dayne Warren, speaking of fantastic achievements, just starts his final lap in a dominating performance at the front of the field, Andy.
Yeah, and exactly what you want to see as you start your final lap in the race lead is a Lamborghini throwing themselves at the scenery in turn 1. Well, that's exactly what Dayne Warren had to deal with there. There was a car off in the gravel right ahead of him going into turn number 1. Time then has ticked down to 0. As you say, that means the leader is on the final lap then, and for Dayne Warren it's going to be 2 victories from 2, it would seem, at the start of the season. Maki Maslan looking fairly safe in second, although look, that gap between himself and Fadley Ratchmat has come down now, hasn't it, to just under a second and a half. So Ratchmat was coming back at him there towards the end, but the race leader is heading into the final sector now. Dayne Warren, we haven't seen a lot of him, which is something drivers like to complain about sometimes, but it's usually a good sign because it means they weren't involved in any shenanigans. They've had a clean race, and in Dayne Warren's case, they've led pretty much every lap of the race. The only time he wasn't out in front was for a lap during the pit stop sequence when he pitted a lap earlier than a couple of the others, but as soon as he rejoined the track, Paul, he resumed his commanding position, built the lead up again, and it's going to be a very, very worthy double winner here to start the season.
It is indeed. Dayne Warren has shown absolute class from beginning to end in this race at Zandvoort as it comes round the final corner. The VRS Coanda Simsport driver, Dayne Warren, pole position, fastest lap, race victory, 2 from 2 in the SRO World Challenge Esports Asia Sprint Series. Dayne Warren dominates proceedings at the front of the field. That is 25 points towards his championship challenge. Nakib Aslan crosses the line for Axel Sports in the Bentley in second position. Fadil Rajmat takes the final podium spot. Andrew Lawrenson, after a hard charging race for Laundry House, is fifth. Reigning champion and second in the points, Andika Milana in fifth place. Kelvin Chen, after many dramas in the Porsche, crosses the line in fifth. Philippa Bakida, having the comeback of the day, takes seventh at the checkered flag. Wong in the McLaren 720S comes home in P8. Thanel Lappinen in ninth place, and the final points paying position goes to Pratima in the Audi, with Mia Rose following a line of cars across the line in 11th place. Wow, as in wow, as in wow, as in wow. That was great.
Very entertaining stuff, wasn't it? Fantastic race, and Bentley 1, 2, 3 as well. So Bentley clearly was the car to have here, wasn't it, this weekend? Although it's worth mentioning that Jiacheng Jiang, who was in the 6th place in the championship coming into this weekend, also in the Bentley, had a bit of a race to forget, didn't he? But fantastic performance there for Dayne Warren, but actually some of the drivers that were behind him in the running order are the ones that caught my eye, and Philippa Bakida certainly one of those to work her way back into the points. But I think Andika Ramamalana for me is the driver of the race, coming through from where was he on the grid, 12th on the grid to finish 5th. Yes, there was a bit of luck involved, but you still have to put yourself in a position where you can capitalise on other people's misfortune, and he made some really good moves in the early stages as well. So Rama Milana, that 5th place, how significant could that prove to be when we get to that final round of the championship? Because he means he's not losing too many points. 15 points he'll lose to Dayne Warren, but that means he's still close enough to capitalise if Dayne gets a little bit of that bad luck later on in the year.
Exactly that. It's a long, short championship, if that makes sense. And Andika Ramamalana is one of those drivers that knows how to win championships. He knows how to maximise his points haul on the days when he's just not got the ultimate pace to challenge for the race victory. And yes, I think it's going to be very difficult to look past Dayne Warren and the VRS Coanda Simsport team at this stage with 2 commanding victories from 2 races. But as you say, there's so much jeopardy, there's so many cars, so many different tracks. Mazzano next up on the 22nd of July, a very short, sharp technical circuit. Traffic will have a lot to do with the outcome of the race. It'll be so easy to make a mistake and throw the car into the scenery. So by being devastatingly fast, such as Dayne Warren is, that helps your corner, but it's not a guarantee of success, is it?
No, not at all, and that's why you bank the points when you get the chance to at the early part of the championship, don't you? So, Dayne knew exactly what he had to do in that race and executed it pretty perfectly. We're seeing here from the early stages of the race examples of maybe how 1 or 2 of the others were not able to do that, and Philippa Bakida, one of those, off also into the barriers, went the 281 Lexus there, which I don't think we spotted initially. That was Ryan Duong, who was elbowed off rather unceremoniously on the opening lap, and then it's a job to get yourself back into the group, isn't it? When you've been off the road, finding that bit of real estate you need to rejoin the track ain't easy.
Yep, so many cars, so little track in which to race against. But now the race is over, for the second time in 2 races, we've got our race victor, Dayne Warren for VRS Coanda Simsport. Dayne, that looked easy. Congratulations on a dominant victory.
Yeah, thanks. I'm not sure if I'd say it was easy. Yeah, I don't know if you saw, but the amount of mistakes I made during that race was a bit worrying. I thought the car was in the wall a couple of times, so down definitely a few things to tidy up on that front, but yeah, no, it's just a really sort of simple and easy race, I guess.
Yeah, it's a fantastic result. 25 points on the board, and your main championship rival from Brands Hatch last time out, Andika Ramamalana, could only manage 5th at the flag, so that must be a good feeling heading into Mazzano, knowing that you've got a healthy points advantage.
Yeah, very good. I'd say obviously the start of the season has been almost perfect, so hopefully we can carry it into Mazzano and just sort of keep the consistency up. Still learning heaps from these races. I mean, just about the sim in general, so hopefully next round we can hopefully take another win or just do it more or easily or confidently, I guess.
And in terms of the VRS Coanda Simsport team, you've not spent much time on this platform in Assetto Corsa Competizione up to the last few recent weeks and months. How much work have you put on between Brands Hatch and today to show this level of competitive performance?
Well, I know myself and the others have been putting quite a lot of time just trying to learn the intricacies. From this sim at least, it's a lot different to what we're used to, so a lot of just tiny things that you need to be aware of to get the most out of the cars in qualifying during the race and all that, so we're definitely still learning, but I think we're doing quite a great job of it.
Yeah, you're doing absolutely fabulous. And next up is Mazzano, a very different track indeed. Are you confident that you can go there and have another good race weekend, or midweek race, shall we say?
I reckon I can count the amount of laps I've done on Mazzano on one hand, so it'll be pretty interesting. But yeah, like I said earlier, we'll go in there hoping for the best and try and get another strong result.
Well, absolutely superb stuff, Dayne, and great to speak to you. As always, congratulations for winning the second round of the GT World Challenge Asia Esports Sprint Series at Zandvoort. Brilliant stuff.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.
And a dominant performance that was, Andy, wasn't it? Fabulous, and just to see how cool, calm and collected Dayne is despite dominating the race, it's remarkable, isn't it?
Typical Aussie, isn't he, Dayne Warren?
Yeah.
Unflappable, calm, cool as a cucumber, and quick behind the wheel of a racing car as well, which does also seem to be a trait of Australians, doesn't it? Some very, very good real and sim world drivers coming from that part of the world. And he's going to be tough to beat now, isn't he? Because he already had won at Brands Hatch. Another win now means that he's got an even bigger margin over the rest of the field, because a lot of his near rivals in the championship didn't necessarily manage to score all that heavily, did they? So, yeah, Dayne is going to be one to watch, I think, as we move through the series. The next race, though, will be at Bathurst. This is for the endurance element of the GT World Challenge Asia Esports Championship. That coming your way on the 17th of July, which seem to recall is a Saturday, so you can enjoy an endurance race around Mount Panorama, and it really doesn't get much better than that, does it, Paul?
No, it doesn't. That'll be a fantastic event indeed, and the Sprint Series will be back in action again on the 22nd of July at Mazzano as well, so stay tuned for that one. And that just leaves me to say a huge warm thank you to everybody at home watching this broadcast. A thank you to the broadcast directors and everybody involved in bringing this championship and this race to life, and of course, a great thanks to Mr. Andy McEwen for joining me in the virtual commentary box for 60 minutes of pure adrenaline and action. It's been great working with you once again, Andy.
Yeah, likewise, Paul. Good racing, good company. Can't ask for much more than that.
Brilliant stuff. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Until next time, we'll catch you later. Take care. Bye-bye.